How often do you hear about a creator from a major game development company revisiting a game that they worked on over 2 decades ago that did not live up to their expectations? And not only address its flaws, but actively go back, fix the game, and release it for the world to experience. I'll hazard a guess that that's not something that's particularly common, which makes the existence of Sonic 3D Blast DX as a project pretty special. Sonic Team and Dimps may be the developers of most renown, or infamy as the case may be at this point. But one more name was at one point synonymous with the franchise once upon a time, producing some of the most visible gaming output the Blue Hedgehog had during the Saturn era. I am of course talking about Traveler's Tales. In the 90s, Traveler's Tales was the go-to developer for licensed projects for companies like Disney. Mickey Mania and Toy Story pushed the limits of what the Genesis was capable of, with clever graphical workarounds to create effects thought to be impossible at the time. With Traveler's Tales on fire at the time, it made sense for Sega to entrust their mascot, still riding high off of his 16-bit classic successes, to the trusted developer as Sonic Team moved on to other interests. The result of this partnership were 2 titles iconic of the post-classic era of Sonic: Sonic 3D Blast, or Flicky's Island in the UK, and Sonic R, the game that spawned 1,000 memes. While these games today have come to be dismissed as subpar, their value at the moment of the release, with Sonic Team off working on projects like Nights into Dreams and Sega Technical Institute in a prolonged state of implosion as they attempted to salvage anything from the ultimately ill-fated Sonic Extreme project, was unquestionable. It was in this transitional situation, with Sega in disarray about the future of their hardware, their business, and their mascot, that Sonic 3D Blast came into being. Fast forward about 20 years. In August of 2017, Traveler's Tales co-founder, John Burton, started posting videos on his YouTube channel, GameHut, revealing prototype footage of games like Haven, Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex, and several others, as well as fascinating graphical tech demos that revealed how in-depth Traveler's Tales' understanding of the Genesis's limitations and abilities were. The channel quickly grew, ballooning up to just under 70,000 subscribers in just over 3 months. However, many Sonic fans really began to take notice of the channel as he began to reveal prototype footage of never-before-seen materials related to Sonic 3D Blast, including the earliest known existing prototype version of the game, a cassette tape featuring never-before-used compositions from Sonic composer Jun Senoue, which he unfortunately could not secure permission to play publicly, and unused enemy badniks. But it wasn't until early October of 2017 that fans began to suspect that something exciting might be on the horizon. In a new video, Mr. Burton showed footage of the in-game debug mode that was used in the actual development of the game for real-time level editing. While no one knew to the fullest degree exactly why this was such a huge breakthrough, it seems that Burton already knew exactly what this rediscovery would make possible, because only a mere 2 days later, Sonic 3D Blast DX was announced. Fan hacking projects are nothing new to the Sonic scene. Massive undertakings like Sonic Megamix, Sonic 3 Complete, and Sonic Adventure Fixed Edition have existed for years, providing new experiences, improving existing titles significantly, and in the case of Sonic Adventure Fixed Edition, fundamentally repairing the problems to the game that Sonic Team were too lazy to mess with later ports. But from the announcement of Sonic 3D Blast DX, fans knew this was something fundamentally different. This was one of the primary developers of the original game, using the myriad of tools available to him to alter and improve his product in the same fashion that the game was created in the first place. Sure, isolated instances of devs revealing new things about their games, or being an active resource in the case of Sonic Extreme existed, but one guy taking it on himself to change up his own game for fun? Now that's uncommon. This scenario was entirely unprecedented and unexpected, as was the amount of progress that Mr. Burton was able to make in such a short amount of time. Videos came hard and fast, each one including tons of updates and overviews about how the changes were being accomplished. New modes, physics alterations, glitch fixes, and even Supersonic and the intricate palette swapping required to make him possible were all chronicled in the rapid-fire release of these updates, and made GameHut's audience collective heads spin. In a scene where full-fledged hacks often took months or years to complete, John Burton was knocking out his checklist in a matter of days. But all of this seemed too good to be true. Burton would move on and the fans would shrug their shoulders and focus their attentions elsewhere. Except for, no, that is not what happened at all. Just over a month after the project was announced, and just in time for the 2017 Sonic Hacking Contest, Sonic 3D Blast DX was released to the public. No compromises. That which John Burton discussed being in the game was in the game. The edits range from small to game-changing, but one thing was for sure. This kind of opportunity to see a dev in his element and bringing an extra 20 years of development experience to an old project was a sight to behold. So with all the hype, all of the inspirational hard work, and new discoveries, how is Sonic 3D Blast DX? For those of you who have never played the title, it's far from your typical Sonic experience. Beyond the obvious change to an isometric viewpoint, 3D Blast is also not a point A to point B platformer like the classics. Players must first find and destroy the badniks in the stage to release the flickies, small birds, inside, and lead them to giant gold rings, where Sonic will slam dunk them into their home dimension. This will allow Sonic to progress to the next portion of the level, or into the next act. In many ways, 3D Blast is less a true Blue Sonic sequel and more of a spiritual successor to Sega's arcade game Flicky, just featuring a Sonic coat of paint. It feels like a precursor to the treasure hunting stages in the Adventure series. As a matter of fact, players of 3D Blast will notice more than a few connections between 3D Blast and Adventure. The composer of both games, Jun Sonoe, recycled a couple of his stage themes from 3D Blast for Adventure. Players of both games will instantly recognize Green Grove's theme as that of Windy Valley in Adventure. As well as the opening story scene and Panic Puppet Zone as the theme from Twinkle Circuit. Eventually, an unused track from the game would also make its way into Sonic 4 Episode 1 as the boss theme. Along with the music that would find itself in Adventure, Sonic also has access to his homing attack, making its first recognizable appearance here in 3D Blast. By obtaining a golden shield, Sonic can perform the move in the exact same way that a player would in modern Sonic titles. While there are elements in 3D Blast that are clearly moving forward towards Adventure's mechanics, the aesthetics and presentation of 3D Blast are classic Sonic through and through. Checkerboard patterns, colorful badniks, and the upbeat soundtrack throughout remain consistent with what had come before. Additionally, the pre-rendered backgrounds often came close to being on par with similar graphics seen in 3D Blast's contemporary, the Donkey Kong Country series, an impressive feat considering the Genesis's relative graphical weakness compared to the Super Nintendo, really going a long way to show Traveler's Tales' expertise at coaxing out the console's very best performance. While the Saturn and PC versions of 3D Blast are far more visually pleasing, the Genesis iteration still holds its own graphically, pushing the console hard, resulting in some very impressive visuals for the era. Despite the change of game objective and its use of flicky collecting, 3D Blast operates in a very similar way to the classic titles, complete with momentum, high speeds, and unique set pieces, both to its benefit and its detriment. The rate of Sonic's speed and the looseness of his movement in the original 3D Blast is just not best suited for an isometric view, nor is his particular brand of platforming. The amount of precision needed for landing jumps on small platforms just doesn't mesh well with Sonic's high degree of movement and the isometric camera, which can be disorienting and in the worst case sometimes nausea-inducing. This is an aspect that the DX version improves slightly, however, with Sonic's low-speed handling getting a slight but beneficial overhaul, and the camera behaving just that little bit better to avoid the worst discombobulation that the perspective brings along with it. The difficulty has also been adjusted, with flickies acting as a shield against projectiles and other enemies. This, in conjunction with a password system, as well as the ability to replay completed zones to nab a Chaos Emerald you may have missed previously, makes picking up where you left off painless. This, along with other subtle updates like Sonic's shadow being more prominent over tiles with busier textures, and significantly improved boss stage cameras, means from a mechanical standpoint, 3D Blast DX is the ideal way to play the game. The fact that this is also the only quote-unquote official way of playing a Super Sonic in 3D Blast, pre-existing fan hacks notwithstanding, as well as being the only version of the game to give any real value to collectible Sonic tokens in the point system in the form of completion bonuses, on top of the fact that this is the only version of the game with a time attack mode, 3D Blast also has the most amount of replay value of any of the pre-existing versions of the game. But whether or not you actually want to replay 3D Blast is, well, that's the real question here. If you're like me that enjoyed the original for what it was, even with its flaws, the features in DX will definitely make it the superior version for you. But if you were a player that didn't enjoy the original, the DX version's not going to change your mind. Ultimately, even with the good that the improvements bring, it's still just 3D Blast, just with some of the less refined elements tweaked and tuned. And whether or not that's a game changer for you, entirely depends on how you felt about the game in the first place. 2017 has been one of the most contradictory years that the Sonic series has ever had. Sonic Mania came out to universal acclaim and stands as one of the strongest titles in the entire series. Contrast that with Sonic Forces just 3 months later that showed the least amount of effort Sonic Team has put into a mainline Sonic title since Sonic 06. In a world where Sonic Team has no passion or willingness to go the extra mile with their games, it's easy to become pessimistic towards the future of the franchise. That fact makes the timing of Sonic 3D Blast DX's release coming just afterward feel so perfect. John Burton received no payment for the work that he put into the DX version of 3D Blast. It's a project fans probably didn't even think that they needed all that much. And in the end, it's still just Sonic 3D Blast. It was an entirely thankless job, yet Burton felt compelled to go for it regardless of this fact. Someone responsible for a Sonic game felt the need to go back and fix an earlier work, to feel out its weaknesses and remove them, to fix them, to improve the product, to take what he had learned in the interim to develop a superior game. Passion, improvement, a drive to create, to expand on the good in order to diminish the bad, to learn from the past and overcome those past limitations. Honest to goodness effort. Despite how you feel about Sonic 3D Blast, something tells me that this is exactly what Sonic fans need to hear is still happening in the series. Somewhere at least. The patch for Sonic 3D Blast DX Edition is available in the description. But for now, that's all I've got. Have a good one.